What's up guys, Cloudie here checking in from the America server, and today we have received the balance patch from Vespa, so we're gonna be looking at what all the changes are for the 16 chosen heroes who have been quote-unquote buffed by Vespa. Now the heroes are Hilda, Shamila, Lilia, Tanya, Theo, Meru, Reyna, Lucia, Rodina, Scarlet, Nyx, Crow, and Krisha. Now, if you have been following any of like the Plug Cafe posts or Reddit or maybe any of the social networks, you can see that people are generally not happy with the balance changes. And I believe the reason for that is that they just seem very lackluster and low effort without putting in any real thought into how to actually make the characters viable or make them actually better in the areas where they are lacking. And I know some people were expecting like just everyone to be buffed to pencil levels. I do not think that's viable. But yeah, this balance patch feels kind of lackluster, low effort, and it just doesn't give too much confidence towards Vespa, especially because we had to wait a long time for this. So if we had to wait like 4 months or so for this kind of a balance, then there is very little hope that they will be fixing things. Now, I do not like to say doom and gloom and stuff like that. I still like the game and stuff, but yeah, this balance patch is just disappointing. Let's say disappointing. Yeah, but let's go through what we have here. Now, my recording software really doesn't like me switching between the game and web pages, so what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna look at the changes on my tablet, and then we will just look at the heroes in game, see what they do. But if any of you guys actually know some fairly reliable recording software, I would love to hear about that, because the ones I have can give me real nightmares at times. So if you could leave them in the comments below, I would love to hear about that. But okay, let's see what we have. The first one on the list is Roy, who had some of his stuff changed. His S2 now gives twice the attack it did before and has a 10% increased damage to the enemy for 10 seconds. So this is a 10-second uptime for a 15-second cooldown. Not terribly hip. I mean, it's a bonus to his damage, but it's like not super groundbreaking or anything. Now his hack skill was changed, and they have added the tier 4 dark perk to it. So now his crits have a chance of inflicting 1 stack of bleed, which he of course needs for his S3 spam, so that's kind of nice. It frees up 1 perk when you're building him for bosses, and what they have added instead is mana reduction to the hits from this skill. Now it's yeah, I mean, mana reduction is mainly shock meme, I guess, and maybe like Siegfried, I suppose, if you were to use him there, but I'm not sure if you would. And yeah, the problem is his targeting issues still haven't really been addressed, and he's kind of very far down on the single target DPS list right now, I feel. It could be something weird in PvP with like the mana drain and being unhittable to like physical attackers, so maybe he could work there, but in general it kind of feels like it's a buff. He will do more damage, but it's not really enough to make him competitive with like any of the new single target characters like Cecilia or even Chase maybe. So yeah, kinda it's alrightish, but kinda feels lackluster. Let's see, the next one on the list is actually Kala, everyone's favorite orc. Now what they did, they changed his S4, so let's look at it, the chain lightning skill. So this triggers every 15 seconds, hitting like up to 4 enemies, and if it's like a critical hit or up on a up on a critical hit, it also stuns, which is interesting, and you get this electric shock on it. So enemies inflicted with electric shock will take extra damage, and for every enemy under electric shock, this is the new part, Kala takes 15% reduced damage, so all types of damage, which is nice, and this can be stacked up to 3 times and is also undispellable. Now this is added as a note to the patch notes, so this effect cannot be dispelled from him, which is quite nice. Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty great. Kala is like one of the... He's kind of underrated because he's an orc and a male, not like a cute lady like, say, May. But his buffs are good. He has a decent healing. He has CC, so he's a pretty well-rounded healer. just not the best at amping and stuff, so maybe a bit undervalued. But for instance, I really do like him on stuff like Big Shack, and if he can live a bit easier now, 15% damage reduction is not the end of the world, but it's also not too bad. So yeah, that's kind of nice. Now, what they have changed also on his perks, so the S4 Dark was changed that upon activation dispels the target's positive effects if there are 3 or less enemies. Now, this skill activates every 15 seconds, so like, I don't know where this would be useful, because it's not on demand dispel, and like, okay, every now and then you will dispel something, but you can't really control when, and it only works if there are 3 or less enemies, so it doesn't work in like AoE situations, where maybe in like those shielding stages it would have been good, but it doesn't work when there are more enemies. So I don't know what really the idea was behind this, and also it's limited to 3 or less, so you can't control when it activates, and it only would work when there are 3 or less enemies. I'm not sure what the idea was behind this. If you know where this would actually work, I would love to know, because I don't really see myself using this anywhere right now. But maybe you have an idea. Not even Guild Wars, so yeah, I don't know. But let me know. If you know, let me know. I want to know. Okay, that's a lot of no's. Let's move on. Next one is Meru, and this one leaves me a bit puzzled, because she got mainly a damage buff and an unconditional damage buff, which is in PvP Meru is still very strong. I have seen teams with like 3 cleansers and the solo Meru as DPS, and I got one hit by that team the moment she got a skill off, so I don't really see why this was needed. Her S1 and her S received a 12% damage boost. Her second S2 received a 7%, so not terribly big changes, but I do not know why this was needed. If they wanted to make her stronger in PvE, they could have done it with like the non-hero damage, and I do not see if she needed any buffs in PvP, so yeah. And then they are changing the Transcendence perk for S3, so the S3 Light will now increase damage and deal damage in a wider range. So like, that's okay, more AoE. This is a PvE buff, I guess. Then again, it could be used in PvP too, because it will hit more people. But this is one of her higher mana skills, so I do not know if people usually cast this first. I don't think so. So yeah, this is kind of weird, and I'm not really sure what Vespa's intention was with this. I'm not sure they know either. And then her soul weapon advancement phase 2 will give her physical damage boost, or an increased boost by 20%. I'm not sure if it did before, but yeah. So all in all, Meru got a bunch of buffs, and I'm not sure if she really needed them. Moving on, let's see, we have Reyna next, so let's find Reyna. She's very far in the list down for me. Now let's see what they changed. So they increased the damage of her S1 by a whole 8%, and Flash, if you know him, who is one of my guildies, he is a Reyna simp, a Reyna main, so to say, and he had a very long write-up why this actually doesn't work, mainly because of the scalings of the skill. This isn't really effective. Yeah, so, and anyway, an 8% buff wouldn't really help her too much. Now they changed the S2 that it now will dispel negative effects from self, so it's like a self cleanse, which a lot of assassins have nowadays. But I don't know, I mean, generally that's a PvP skill, and Reyna PvP is really rare. There are some scary ones out there that you can't hit while they are like floating like a butterfly, but whatever. So this seems kind of odd. And then they have increased the damage of Shooting Star, the third skill. And as Flash wrote it, the problem with this is that they actually do not use S3 in their DPS rotation. So even with this buff, it's actually a DPS loss to use, which makes it kind of worthless. I do not play Reyna, so I can't quite comment on this, but I will believe Flash because he is one of the Reyna sims and he's generally not a bad player. So I would say that's probably true. And they are also changing her Transcendence perk, her Tier 5 Dark, that upon using a skill increases own crit damage by 10% for 10 seconds, and this can be stacked up to 10 times. So the way it was before, that it would be a random proc that would give 100% crit damage for 5 seconds. Instead of that, now you can have a constant buff for her. This can be good, it can be bad. If you are doing longer fights, then this is good, because now you are, once you have stacked it up, it stays there pretty much forever. If you were trying to do very fast challenge rate clears, then this is bad, because you do not get all that crit damage right away. So I guess it depends how you feel about it generally. But yeah, so Reyna has her own issues. She's still not really a top tier single target DPS, and this change did not affect that in any form or way, I believe. So that's why people are not really super happy about it. Okay, let's see who is next. Rodina is the next on the list, who should be somewhere super low on my skill list as well. Let's see, so they changed her S3, so the cooldown of this got reduced from 25 seconds to 13 seconds, and she had a Transcendence perk which would reduce the cooldown every time she crit, and now this will be changed so that it increases the mana cost, but every time she shoots it will be hitting 2 targets instead of 1. So Rodina isn't really an AoE character, but she was really good at killing bosses, and she could be scary in PvP sometimes, where she would just snipe your backlines and whatever. And now with this skill she will be hitting even harder. Whether this is good or not, I'm not so sure. I mean, now she hits, if she gets that skill off, now she will be hitting 2 people at once, so it could be good. It doesn't make her any better in PvE, and for PvP it's alright-ish. I don't really have an opinion on this, because I do not play Rodina. I don't think many people will choose to play her after this buff either. So yeah, let's move on. What else we have? Next one will be Lucia. And Lucia is one of those buffs that really wasn't well thought out, I believe. So they have changed it so that her skills, as you may remember, that she applies a dot, a damage over time effect, with her auto attacks, and then her skill damage scales with the number of dots on the target. Now before the change she could do 200 of these, and now this was changed to 60 times, so 60 stacks, and she has a perk which was her as for light, which updates this to 120 stacks. So this used to be 200 stacks and you would get a 100% damage increase. Now this is 120 stacks and you get a 120% damage increase from that. So technically this is a buff, and it also helps that having fewer stacks means she gets to do her maximum damage potential faster. So that's not a bad thing. But the problem is things like this, for instance. This perk needs 80 stacks of the Blood Curse, which you cannot get without having S3 Light. Now, I would say that in most cases you will have S3 Light anyway. I do not see why you wouldn't take this perk unless you are preparing for some very fast fights. But yeah, it kinda seems like not so well thought out, and then yeah, it just kind of feels weird. And I think there was also something else, maybe about her UT4, which I do not have. So yeah, again, she gets a bit of a buff, like somewhere between around 10 to 15% maybe, and she will stack up faster, which means she gets better at what she does at single target boss damage. She could have gotten some non-hero damage again, and maybe something else that puts her higher in the boss killer list, because right now she is only really good at that, and even at that she is not that good. So essentially only people who really love her take her now, and it's just, yeah, she could use a buff, let's be honest, and I don't think that this will change her situation in any form or way, which is too bad because I really do like her. Now let's move on. Next one is Nyx. Nyx was one of the characters that we really were afraid of getting a big buff for PvP. Sorry, I have so many PvP scars from this guy. But yeah, actually he only got a PvE buff. So what they did, his Hidden Blade got changed so that Uh, I think this was one of his, yeah, it was his tier 5 dark that got rolled into this perk. So now this adding blade stack things is now part of the main skill, which means that it frees up a talent for him. And his tier 5 dark was changed that at the beginning of each battle he gets a non-hero damage buff, and which is irremovable, and it can be stacked up to 5 times. So in battles that have multiple stages, like maybe Eclipse or maybe Small Shock Maim or like Escalon, he gets a stacking buff, which could be good. Um, he might be good in Escalon actually. With this buff, he could help clear the ads faster. So all in all, not a terribly big buff, and it doesn't break PvP. So I'm happy enough with this. I'm not Nyx main myself. I never really liked the guy because of PvP. But these kind of changes, I guess I'm okay with. Also, it means that in PvP he can pick one more perk now. He doesn't need his tier 5 dark anymore. So it is also a PvP buff actually, but not really a game breaking one, I feel. So I'm quite alright with that. Don't know about you guys. Let's see, Tanya. Now Tanya is an interesting one. What did they change about Tanya? So her S4 skill got changed, the silent ambush. But now she gets crit, they double the crit chance and the dodge rate from this skill, and increases the silence effect duration from 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds. Now some would say, and like yeah, this was commented also by Flash, who talked to like Frost on the NA server, I think that's his name was, who is like a Tanya main, and he was saying that like, well, it doesn't really do much for her, that the dodge is dispellable and like that's not so good, so that this is kind of useless now, and that the crit chance isn't that highly valued. Now, I would argue that with TM gears, crit chance, built-in crit chance is pretty much useful, because you only get 2 stat lines, and if you have built-in crit, it means you do not need that many crit lines on your UTs and your main gear, which means you can focus on your main stat attack a lot more, or whatever you want. And now saying that, well, stuff is dispellable and so the dodge chance doesn't give her so much, yeah, it's dispellable. So are the 3 other shields that most Tanya users will run with. Like, come on, usually you will have a Loman and the Fallen Frey next to her, so that's 2 shields, and most people will not run with like 3 separate dispels, unlike well, maybe if they are like Bernheim users who continuously dispels. But yeah, I mean, most PvP teams, I believe, do not have that many dispels in the first place. So yeah, it's dispellable, but you have like 3 other buffs that will not be dispelled if they dispel your stealth, unless they can live that long enough. And Tanya still does a lot of damage, so I would say hit and miss. Like more free stats is not so bad. And honestly, would you want her to have like 300 undispellable free dodge just from her built-in? Like, does she need to be unhittable in PvP? What kind of broken game is that? I really do not like these kind of ultimate skills, and yeah, generally I just feel like it's not really warranted. She could have used other buffs like a PvE buff emo, but I do not think that she really needs that much of a PvP buff. At least that was my impression. I have fought still quite a lot of Tanyas in Arena, but of course I do not go into the Challenger region, so what do I know? They have also changed the target sighted perk for her S1, so that's her S1 perk. And this one is like the S1 Dark that they have changed, and changes the target to Priest and reduces target's physical crit resistance by 250. Now normally this would target the one with the lowest physical defense, and generally, again, this is one that I do not understand, because generally the 2 types of the 2 characters with the lowest physical defense are either a priest or a wizard. Everyone else will have more physical defense, I believe. So, and the priest is usually the healer, and you want to lock down the DPS. So if there is a priest and a wizard, you would want to jump to the wizard, and if there is a priest and any other kind of DPS, then you would be targeting the priest anyway. So this perk doesn't really make sense. they had a similar one with like Floss and the Wizard, and that kinda made sense. Although I think that's like racist against wizards, but whatever. But this one doesn't really make sense because you are almost always targeting priests anyway, and when you are not, you don't want to be targeting the priests. So I don't really get this. If you guys know, let me know. Again, I'm repeating no so much. But yeah, I don't really understand why this change was made to the perk or what's the purpose of it is. Okay, let's move on, and I hope I can actually find my Theo. Theo is on the next one on the list. Now, Theo is an interesting guy because he's often underestimated as a character because he's not really good at scoring content. So you do not really take him to world bosses, guild conquest, whatever, because let's be honest, he's not good at those. But on the other hand, Theo is like a super versatile, well-rounded generalist grinder that you just put an auto and he just kills everything in front of him. And he really does that super well. Like I kid you not, he's so good at that. And technically, he had some downsides that were part of his base kit, and Vespa just went and fixed those, like took those negative effects away and made him even better at what he was good at. So in general, Theo got better. What he still isn't good at is scoring content and boss killing and stuff. Well, not necessarily boss killing, but more like world bosses, guild conquest, that kind of stuff. I'm not quite sure how his trial is right now, but yeah, and some people, of course, complain that his S2 is still dispellable. Well, if I'm honest with you guys, I would have chased his S2 to be dispellable because I do not think people need ultimate skills that have no counters. That's not strategic play. If you just need to press S2 and then you have an unstoppable monster, I would not want that for Theo either. So that's my 2 cents on it, but maybe this is just how PvP is. Now let's see what they have actually done. So Skill 2, God of Lightning. This used to be blocking his mana gain, and he needed his tier 5 Dark for it to be only like half mana block, and they have now changed that, so it's no longer doing that. And also the duration got increased to 15 seconds, so higher uptime, no more mana block. This is a flat out buff for him. That's pretty nice. They also changed this Transcendence perk, the tier 2 Dark, or S2 Dark, sorry. The increased attack boost doesn't come with an increased damage taken anymore. So hey, that's pretty good. It gives a lot of attack, and you can get twice that now with the S2 perk. I mean, that's quite nice. Yeah, it doesn't come with any kind of downside now, so that's good to have. They have also had to change, of course, his tier 5 Dark because he no longer has the mana blocking from his S2. So now at full mana increases attack by 50% for 15 seconds, and this effect only activates once every 20 seconds. So what they changed here was that they actually increased the duration. So the perk itself got a bit weaker, I guess, but still a very good one. I mean, once he reaches full mana, he gets a 50% attack buff. It's just that, yeah, you cannot... it's not a full uptime, but it's not too bad actually. So it's I wouldn't say that Theo got shafted here. It's just that he's still not gonna be compatible in those game modes like scoring content and stuff. But he has gotten better at what he was already good at, and that's not necessarily bad. That's what I think about him. They also changed his unique weapon, that the Lightning Bolt Legius will now be up for 15 seconds instead of 10 seconds, so a higher uptime on this pretty strong buff. It's just that you need a lot of time. You need like 50 hits to stack this up, and then it's up for 15 seconds. And yeah, it still doesn't stack while you are in this Lightning Bolt state, so you can't have a constant uptime on it. I think the main issue with this is that it's not in your control when you pop his buffs, because this one comes with his mana, and it's very hard to control mana gain, especially now that you cannot do it with S2, and you also can't really control how many stacks you have. So it just means that if you were trying to aim for burst windows, then it would be a lot harder with Theo. So yeah, that kind of stuff wasn't fixed in this update. But I would say Theo is still in a decent spot. He's good as a generalist grinder. At that, he's very, very good. What he's not good at is like scoring content, sadly, and like bossing. But As I recall, he was able to clear trials to like 8 before the changes, so I don't know. Let me know, guys. Again, I'm saying that again, sorry. But yeah, write in the comments what you feel about Theo. What were you expecting? Did he get to the levels that you wanted him to, or what kind of changes would you like to see for him? And while I'm talking, I'm trying to disguise that I do not know where my Whiska is. So Whiska has received some interesting changes. So it starts with her I Slice You Up S2 skill. Now this had a different book attribute here, which got rolled into the skill itself now. So the part of the magic damage buff now is baseline, and it gets the skill itself gets a bit of a damage buff. So that's alrightish, not too bad. And this effect is maintained for 15 seconds. It's not quite clear from this, but both of these are up for 15 seconds. So yeah, that's like alright. She does more damage. She doesn't need the skill books now to do her stuff. I Repeat to Pieces got now lowered 13 seconds, which is okay because it means that, especially in auto mode, she takes a while to get to 5 stacks of her soul buff, and this way she can do it somewhat faster. After 3 stacks or 5 stacks, she will have no cooldown on this, so usually that's not an issue. And especially if you run her with her UT3, which means that she no longer consumes those souls and she can just spam her S3 from that point on. So generally not a bad change, not terribly big either. They also changed her Transcendence perk, that now instead of giving the that she no longer needs the soul condition for the magic defense reduction, she gets a heal rate reduction, which is also a 15-second uptime. Yeah, I mean, it's alright. It's alright. Not a super big buff. She got better at like debuffing and stuff, so I guess she will be useful in some stuff. Alright. I just clicked away from the all hero screen. Now the next one is Crow, and this one is like the most uninspired buff ever. Let me read it out to you. Even ghosts shall die, third skill. Damage will increase by 17%. Period. Done. That's all the buffs or changes they did for Crow. And I haven't really checked the math on this, but someone was saying that this comes out to an actual 4%-ish kind of buff, and that also that someone was comparing their World Boss 3 score from before the patch and after the patch, and the difference was like 108, what was it, 528 real before and 530 after. Now Xenadis is a fairly RNG heavy fight, the patterns matter a lot, so it could be just that. But yeah, it doesn't seem like a really well thought out change to him. His issue is that he takes forever to stack up, and that his S2 is like kinda lame and it's mainly just a PvP skill and doesn't really do anything, or it just adds you one more stack to your soul weapon before you fire with Even God Shall Die. So yeah, it's just like no effort, no consideration kind of buff. And Crow is really good at the stuff what he does, like one-shotting stuff, but he's clunky to use. He needs manual control to be really good, I believe. And yeah, considering that he is the leader of the Hound unit, it kind of feels like he's also the weakest member, at least with the most limited use. But maybe that's just me. I would have liked to see a real buff for him, making him more useful, maybe change his stuff a bit, that he's not, well, it's characteristic that he fires rarely, but then it's like a massively big number, and that works well in a number of stages, but it's or places. I don't know. I feel like a bit disappointed, mainly because it just feels so uninspired. Increases damage by 17%. Okay, went over. Let's check the next character, which is Shamila. And this again is like a very strange update. Where is my Shamila? That's where she's hiding. So let's see what did they change for Shambov. Her force skill was changed that the Vessel of Curses will now last for 10 seconds instead of 7 seconds. Why does it really matter? Because usually Shamila uses her skills as soon as she can. She is like a pure PvP unit. I have never seen her used outside PvP, and in PvP she kind of wants to get her skills off fast. So while she is in her immunity shields before it gets broken on her, because then she loses the vessel, of course, is to have 4 enemies as the target. So it doesn't really matter if she has a higher uptime on the shield, because she will be using it up almost immediately anyway. So what's the point? I don't know. Now they have also changed the Transcendence perk that is connected to this one. So now instead of increasing the duration of the shield and making it dispellable, it just gives her some CC ACC while she has the shield up. Again, PvP related change, so it helps you counter CC res heavy teams. But I think in most cases you kind of want the extra shield, because as far as I know, her shield scaling is pretty bad and it gets broken easily, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because an undispellable shield that just gives you 4 targets for all of your skills is like, Again, I don't really like these kind of ultimate skills, but maybe that's just me, because I didn't really generally like the way PvP is in King's Raid in general. And they also changed her unique weapon, that the uptime on this is now reduced by like 2 seconds at 5 stars. So it's reduced constantly by 1-2 seconds. At the end, this is now 10 seconds, so every 10 seconds instead of every 12 seconds. Now, this would have some meaning in PvE, I guess, because from what I know from people who use Shamila, most battles end in 10 seconds, so you don't get to use a second Vessel of Curses. Like, it's really rare, because she's, let's be honest, she's in a burst team. If you do not kill someone in 10 seconds, you probably die. So, I don't know. This kind of feels like not so well thought out either. But yeah, maybe. I mean, it's a buff in a sense, just a weird one. Like whatever. Let's see, the next one, Lilia. Now, Lilia is interesting because I would say she is definitely the winner of this balance patch. She has received a 14% increase on her Aqua Tempest. That's not bad. It's like an alright skill. I have been wiped out by this skill alone, where it just went through all my team and killed everyone. So now it does even more damage. Then her Celestial Cataract, her S3 gets an 11% damage buff, so this will hit even harder. You have probably seen this a lot in PvP, where you have like a Leo or a Cassandra and a Lilia coming at you, and by the time you try and stop her, she has already wiped your team out. So yeah, she will be doing even more damage now, and if you have seen her in like trials and stuff, she does decent damage, so I don't know if this was needed. She will not be a better boss killer, I guess. I mean, she will not overtake the single target boss killer, so I don't know. Whatever. But they have also changed her Aqua Purification to now add 300 crit chance, which is again a pretty good buff considering TM gears. So now if you have because you are more stat limited, stat line limited, 300 crit chance is a lot. It really helps hit the crit cap, and yeah, I think that's pretty nice. So Lilia overall, damage increase, crit chance increase, not too bad, and also her soul weapon has now a built-in increases own damage dealt to enemies by 20%. So generally Lilia just got a lot stronger, or not a lot stronger maybe, but generally stronger. So no real downsides to her changes. she will be doing more damage and she needs to stack less crit now. So yeah, okay. Moving on, let's see Krisha. Now Krisha changes are hit and miss in my opinion, which is too bad because I really want to use her. And now that I'm running Trial of Sky with my Tralisha, I have started using her, and yeah, she could have used the bigger buff, I think, but yeah, whatever. So enemy blockade, this was one of the skills that changed. Instead of doing a 1 second silence, now it's a 2 second silence on all enemies. 2 second silence. Now I was told that with the 1 second silence, and this includes me, I guess, that people don't bother cleansing this at all. With a 2 second, maybe they have to, but this is like, it's alright, but it's like not great. Whatever. I mean, the difference between a 1 and a 2 second silence, I guess it can make the difference in a PvP game, but it's not super big. Now, the other thing that they changed about his, and my voice is dying, sorry, that now when she owns the blue light, her damage is no longer decreased by 50% but only 30, which is not too bad because in the blue light form her attacks hit every target, so it's like an AoE form, and she was losing 50% damage while doing that. So she was doing AoE, sorry, but like a very reduced AoE, and well, 20% more now, so that's alright. And she also increases the magic damage taken by whatever she hits during this time, which is okay. It might help clear Sky Trial more easily. Like if you have a build Krisha, then she can add some AoE DPS to the pillars, and that should help you like get rid of them faster. So all in all, it's a buff, not a terribly big one, but it's a buff, so we should be happy. Moving on, we have 2 more characters to check. Scarlet right next to her, and Goddess of War. So her S4 got changed, so that what did they do? Added an effect where each hit increases physical damage the target takes by 3%, and this can be stacked up to maximum 10 times. And yeah, I guess this is a PvE buff. Or if you are like facing a wall team with your Scarlet team, then you can debuff them to take more damage, because again, Scarlet teams usually will kill you very fast, especially Scarlet nuke teams. So I'm not really sure if this was needed or not, but she can do that now. What else have they changed? Let's check. So her Transcendence perks got changed for her S2 light skill got changed, that now this comes with an attack speed debuff, so 300 minus attack speed for 10 seconds. So not only will she nuke you now with an uninterruptible nuke that is also a cleanse on herself and a dispel on you, she will also reduce your attack speed in case you survived. So yeah, so good. They also change her Goddess of War Dark skill, so this one, so the physical damage taken boost becomes irremovable. So if you are facing like a wall deck with like 2 cleansers, or then they can't remove the more damage taken buff, I guess. So that's like useful, but whatever. And they have changed her as 5 or tier 5 light, that she no longer gains CC res but attack speed. Alright, I mean, fine, I guess, not terribly big on that one. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if she needed that attack speed reduction. I kind of find the S2 new Scarlet play a little bit lame, because uninterruptible skills that wipe out an entire enemy team, I don't know why, in what game that is fun or actually a good play, but again, that's just me and PvP. Okay, and the final contender in our balance patch is actually Hilda, who was hyped a lot when she was released by Vespa, and she turned out to be pretty disappointing. Although people have picked her up in PvP because she is like similar to Chase, I guess, with her CC immunity and stuff. So, I guess. Now what they have changed is her S4 skill, the Void Frenzy, what this does is when she gets to maximum mana, she enters Void Frenzy state for 30 seconds now, and in this during this duration, all of her attacks will ignore block effects, and her depth penetration is fixed to 1000 per mana orb. So this is fixed to 6000 penetration. Yes, that's correct. Somebody asked the GMs about this, and yes, that's if you have, because you need 6 mana to activate this, you will have 6000 pen. So it's almost like ignore defense, very close to it. And the curious thing is that this only has a cooldown of 15 seconds, and it's up for 30. Which means that if you actually, after 15 seconds, get to maximum mana again, then guess what will happen? It will renew the buff. I have tested this actually, and we can have a real quick look at it in the training dummy or on the training dummy. So you can see that after 15 seconds, the buff on her will be reapplied. Now I assume that it works exactly the same way when outside the training dummy. That should be the case. So you can see it should get to half in a moment, and then it will be renewed. You don't even need to spend your mana, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, you see it just jumped back up. So technically, if you get her mana up to maximum, or if you keep her mana at maximum, then this buff will stay indefinitely, which is kind of interesting. Not a groundbreaking buff for her, but definitely a buff. It makes her a lot more useful. Just the fact that it stays up instead of 10 seconds to 30 seconds, that's 3 times the uptime that it had before. That's really, really powerful now for PvE, I guess. And the fact that she can keep this up as long as she has or wants, it makes it really interesting. It should help her a lot. I don't know whether she's now viable DPS in all the endgame content or not, but it definitely is an interesting change that now she does not get or can sit in this Void Frenzy state for longer times. It might be good for like a trial and then, I don't know, maybe Siegfried, which is like interesting. So yeah, guys, this has been it really. The 16 heroes that received their balance changes in the 10th of November patch. Now, I said, I think people expected more and are a bit frustrated that some of these feel really not well thought out and kind of lackluster or lacking imagination or effort. I tend to agree. It would have been nice to see a bit more in-depth kind of rebalancing and not just slapping on some numbers in some cases or making some really strange changes. But yeah, that's it, guys. I really need to stop because I have no voice anymore and I'm gonna start coughing soon. So let me know in the comments what you think. Has any of these changes affected you? Are you happy about them? Are you unhappy about them? Let me know. And yeah, this has been it for now. See you in the next one. Cloudie out. Bye.